The African American Legend series highlights the accomplishments of blacks in areas as varied as politics, sports, aviation, business, literature, religion, and education. We will explore how African Americans have succeeded in areas where they've been previously excluded because of segregation, racism, and lack of opportunity. I'm your host, Dr. Roscoe C. Brown, Jr., and with us today is J.R. Harris, an adventurer. And we're going to be talking with J.R. about some of the things that he does, traveling the world, climbing mountains, exploring various places. So the first thing I want to ask you, J.R., is how'd you get into this?
Well, when I was young, we were growing up in the projects out in Queens, and my mother was concerned, my parents were concerned about me getting involved in the gangs and everything, so she put me in the Boy Scouts, and they sent me away to summer camp, and of course I hated it. You know,
was that 10 Mile River?
10 Mile River, yes indeed. And I wanted to stay in the, in the summer and play with my friends, but I was up in, in woods and trees. I didn't like it, but I learned, in the Boy Scouts, how to read a map, how to build a fire, how to track animals, how to recognize different types of food you could eat, first aid, and the whole thing. And I really started to like it. And that's where I learned all the skills. I got all the merit badges. And I used to go off on my own, even as a scout, for a couple of days and just camp away from the other group.
Now that's interesting, because I know as we talk later, you did a lot of these things by yourself. Mm-hmm. What motivated you to go by yourself to do this rather than a couple of your buddies?
Well, the first thing I'll say is, if there are buddies out there, I don't mind going with people. Mm-hmm. So I'm not antisocial, mm-hmm. and I'm not somebody who just has this, this vision quest or solo thing. Mm-hmm. It's mostly at the beginning, it was because nobody else wanted to do it. I did it on my own. I was very comfortable doing it by myself. I don't necessarily recommend going solo, mm-hmm. because it does have its potential dangers. But I actually do like it. And it really started early on, back in those Boy Scout days. Nowadays I go alone because most people my age have no desire to do it. They love the idea that I do it, but they have no desire to do it at all.
Now, you have a business, and that gives you time, flexibility, mm-hmm. to explore these places, and you go all over the world. What are some of the places throughout the world you've been to?
Well, let's see, I've been to Australia twice. I've been to the Outback and the Australian Alps. I've been to Tasmania twice. I've been to northern Alaska 3 times above the Arctic Circle. I've been to Patagonia twice. I've been to Tierra del Fuego. I've been to Lapland. I once walked across Switzerland through the mountains from Austria all the way to France.
Now tell us about that. That sounds very, I used to fly over those mountains. Now tell me how you walk through the mountains of Switzerland by yourself.
Well, actually, Roscoe, that's pretty easy to do because Switzerland is fairly developed. It's not really a wilderness, like some of the other places I've been. There are trails, and very good ones, all through the mountains. The scenery is fantastic. Mm-hmm. There are actually even places to stay. You don't have to stay in a tent. As a matter of fact, they encourage you to stay in these little pensions or guest houses that are down in the valley. Then every day you climb up over the next pass, come down into the next valley, and you stay there.
How high are the mountains you climb?
Well, they're pretty high. It's the heart of the Swiss Alps.
What is pretty high?
Over 12,000 feet, up to 14, 16.
So you gradually go up at various levels?
Well, you go up through the passes, and then you come down. You don't necessarily go over all the peaks. Mm-hmm. That would be a climbing trip as opposed to a hiking or a backpack trip. Mm-hmm. But one time I walked on another trip from Chamonix in France, across the border into Switzerland, all the way to Zermatt, where the Matterhorn is.
And how long did it take you to do that?
That one took me about 16 or 18 days.
Now, how do you get the time with your work to take 3 weeks to climb mountains and go all over the world?
Actually, I'm very lucky. I am self-employed. I have a market research and consulting business that I run with my brother as partners. We've been in business a long time, over 30 years. And at this stage, my brother, my kid brother, he can run it on his own. And really, that's what kid brothers are for. To let the older brother go out and do what he wants while he stays and runs the business. So I'm very, very fortunate that my brother Lloyd is not only able to run the business, but is willing to do it in my absence. Although I will say I do cover for him when I come back, so he gets a chance to go to the Riviera or wherever he wants to go, which is
now in planning one of your trips. First of all, how do you decide where you're going to go, and what kind of planning do you do, and then finally, how do you implement that plan?
Well, in terms of where I want to go, usually what happens is I'll read a magazine or I'll look at something on Discovery Channel, and I'll see something about a particular area somewhere, about an animal that I'm interested in, or a culture, an Inuit, or what have you. And most people, when they see a program or look at a magazine, they'll say, wow, now I know. That was very interesting. Now I know a little something about that area. When I look at these magazines and programs, what I end up with is saying, wow, I really need to go there and see that for myself. I'm not really content just to read about it or see it on TV. So I just decide to go. The actual preparation and planning takes quite a while. It takes several months to order topographic maps, study possible routes, understand what the weather is going to be like, determine what kinds of gear and equipment I have to take, how much food. You have to study to see how many miles a day you can make walking to determine how long the trip will be, and therefore how much food to take. And so it is quite an involved process. Although now that I've done it so many times.
How many times have you done it?
I have about 28 major expeditions, major being 2 weeks or longer.
Over the past how many years?
Over the past 25 years.
Almost like one a year.
One a year, sometimes twice a year. Plus I have a lot of shorter trips. I like to take canoe trips. I like to do a bit of climbing. I climb on rock, I climb on ice. So I'm not just a backpacker wanderer. I like the outdoors in general. And so I've taken other trips aside from these longer expeditions.
Well, clearly physical fitness is a part of your regimen. For example, you walk 20 miles a day, 30 miles a day?
Well, no, not quite.
Yeah.
A typical day, and it varies by terrain, weather, and a lot of other factors. But I'd say 12 to 15 miles is doing well.
With a backpack?
With a backpack, yes.
Yeah. How much does your backpack weigh?
Well, a backpack is very heavy. To be honest,
very heavy?
Is maybe 65 pounds.
And how much do you weigh?
175.
So you got 230 pounds you're carrying around.
So carrying around up and down, they say that you should never carry more than 25% of your total weight. So at 60 pounds, I'm way over that. But the idea is that if you go in a group like most people do, you can share certain things. You only need one first aid kit, one set of pots and pans, one stove, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, if you go by yourself, you have to carry it all yourself. And consequently, the packs are a lot heavier.
So what do you eat on these trips?
It's mostly freeze-dried food and a lot of candy. I like to bring these little M&Ms, just something to munch on all the time. Actually, it's quite a lot in terms of calories. It's between 3,000 and 4,000 calories a day. But over the course of 2 or 3 weeks, I'll still lose about 12 pounds. So there's a lot of exertion there. The other thing is that no matter what you eat and how much you have, after about 10 days, you're always hungry. You're always hungry.
Well, can't you stop and get something to eat in a town?
No, there are no towns. Usually there are no towns. There are no towns, no roads, no nothing. I'm interested in wildlife, in scenery, in history of a particular area. I'm especially interested in culture, indigenous people, if there are people living there. And so I don't try to spend a lot of time in a town. I usually jump off from a town and just stay in the backcountry for most of the time that I'm out there.
Well, you must be a very good photographer.
Well, not really. The thing is that the scenery is so great. All you have to do is take any kind of camera, point it in any direction, push the button, You come back home and everybody says, wow, you are a great photographer. Look at these shots. They're fantastic. So it's really, I give the credit to the scenery, not to the photographer.
Well, given that you've done this so long, I'm sure you've had some close calls. You tell us about some of your close calls.
Well, clearly I try to be very careful, but if you do it over time, you will have a couple of close calls. I think actually the most frightening thing that can happen, or that I think happens, is getting lost. You know, people always say, oh, you spend all this time in grizzly country, or you spend all this time, you know, in really places where the weather is really dangerous or really outrageous. But the moment that you realize that you don't know where you are, the moment you realize that you don't know which way to go, how to get back to where you last knew where you were, is very traumatic. And I can tell you, because I've been lost a lot, it really will scare you. And you have to fight that growing panic. Because
well, how
suddenly,
do you fight it? What do you do when you get lost?
Well, you know, they say the first thing to do when you get lost is just sit down, take it easy, and let that wave of panic come up and just deal with that.
In other words, say, I'm lost.
I'm lost, you know, I don't know where I am, but I'll take a couple of deep breaths, you know, compose myself, and then try to decide what I should do logically to try to find my way out. And I think that once you get beyond that initial panic stage, that, wow, where am I don't know where I am, then I think things begin to pull together, and you can try to find your way, usually with a map, or try to go to a high place where you can look around and get your bearings.
But you've done map reading and so on. They have modern GPSs. Mm-hmm. Do you use the modern stuff, or do you go back to the stars and the moon and the and the map?
No, actually, I'm still old school. I've never taken GPS. Cell phones don't work, so I don't take a cell phone either. So all the time I'm gone, I'm totally out of contact with the rest of the world. I can't contact anybody. They can't contact me. I leave my itinerary behind and my route behind in case I don't show up at the end. Then hopefully search and rescue will come and look for me. It hasn't happened yet, but I still, I'm really good with a map and compass, so I stay with what I know.
Well, what about landmarks? Do you use certain landmarks to move around?
Well, you know, it's part of the planning. I'll study a set of topographic maps for days and days and days. I happen to really like doing that. I can look at a map for hours, and so I'll see on a map a particular landmark, a very high mountain, a river coming in from the east, something of that nature, and I'll know from there, relative to that, where I am. And so even before I get there, I'm envisioning what it's going to look like, because I can see it on the topographic map. I can see all the detail, and I have a sense of what it's going to look like when I get there. And it's really nice when you actually get someplace a zillion miles from your home, and you're in a valley, and you know what that mountain is called over here and what that river is called, and you knew it was kind of going to look like that before you got there, and sure enough, it does.
Have you ever written about this?
Yes, I have. I've written a number of magazine articles, most of them in outdoors magazines that are in other countries. I've got a couple in Tasmanian magazines and some in a magazine in Sweden lately. People overseas are always fascinated when they see me.
I guess because you're by yourself and you're African American, right?
Well, yeah, and to be honest, more than that, and they always say, you know, and you're kind of old to be doing this, aren't you? So they say, boy, you're older than my dad. Of course, they didn't say that 25 years ago. But yeah, they are. When I meet people on the trail, they say, what are you doing here? It's the first thing they say.
What's your answer?
And I say, well, I'm probably doing the same thing you're doing here.
It's a good start. But again, what are you doing there?
Well, you know, I say, well, I'm here to, because I wanted to come and see, I wanted to follow the caribou migration, which happened up in Alaska. Or I wanted to learn about the Inuit culture, which happens in Greenland when I was there. And so all of a sudden, people are kind of fascinated that somebody would take the time by himself to come halfway around the world just because something they saw on TV or read in a magazine made them curious enough to put this whole trip together and come there. And when they hear that, then they really are fascinated. And if they happen to live there, they'll invite me sometimes to their home, or will sit with me for as long as I want and tell me anything I want to know. You know, it's funny, when people go on trips, they always take a camera. And if they see somebody, they'll say, oh, listen, boom, let me take your picture. Mm. When I go places and I'm in an Inuit village or Aborigine or in a Maori in New Zealand, and they see me, they always run and grab whoever has a camera and take my picture.
That's good. Uh-huh.
Or they'll say, I want to take your picture with everybody in the village. And so one by one, they all line up and I get my picture taken with them. And I've made a lot of friends over the years doing that.
Now, this business about going away and not letting anybody know where you are and you can't be tracked, how does that make you feel, and how does that make your friends feel?
Well, first of all, I do leave my itinerary behind. People know I leave it with my brother. He knows exactly where I'm going. He knows the route that I'm taking. And I leave a number that he can call locally to initiate some kind of search and rescue if they have it. And so the idea is, if I don't come back by a certain date, put this into effect and come out.
But if you're in the snow, how are they going to find you?
Well, ideally, if they have a helicopter or something like that, and I know that they're looking for me, it hasn't really happened yet. Mm-hmm. So, and so it's just a plan. But the plan is something that could work if I need it. Mm-hmm. Ideally, I believe that sooner or later, cell phones will be working anywhere in the world, mm-hmm. and that's going to change things. So you'll always be in touch. Mm-hmm. But at the moment, once you go, you're gone. I remember once I was in Northwest Territories. I was gone for over 3 weeks, and I came back to this little town on the Mackenzie River, and I saw the flags were at half mast, and I thought that somebody locally in the town had passed away. Mm-hmm. So I said to this guy, I said, listen, who died? Was it a local mayor or something like that? And they said, no, this is for Princess Diana. She got killed in a car crash. And I said, you're kidding me. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, when did this happen? Mm-hmm. And he said, this was like 2 or 3 weeks ago. And he said, you know what? You're probably one of the few people in the whole world, because of the way communications are, who didn't know that Princess Diana got killed in a crash.
Well, by the way, does radio work where you go?
I doubt it. I never took a radio, so
why?
Too heavy.
What about a little radio?
No, I don't take even a tape player or MP3 or anything like that. I have to really keep account of my weight. Every ounce is very critical, and if a tape weighs 6 ounces, so does a dinner pack of food, and I'd rather have an extra dinner.
How many dinner packs would you take on a trip? Let's say a 2-week trip.
Well, I take, for every week, I take the 7 days worth of food, then I take 1 extra day. And so if I'm gone for 3 weeks, I'll have 3 extra days of food. If something happens, like I get lost and it'll take me a day or 2 to find where I am, and I know that I'm eating food in the process, there'll come a time when I have to cut back and probably not eat, or eat only half of what I.
Well, how does that make you feel? What does that do with your energy?
Not good. It's really simple. The secret is make sure you get where you're going before you run out of food. That's really the only basic rule. You can't really have a good time when you run out of food, or you're always hungry, and so I make sure I have as much as I need. Now I can carry about 16, 17 days. I once carried 18 days worth of food. Anything longer than that would require a food drop in advance, or make arrangements for a plane to come in and bring me some more supplies, something of that nature. So it lets me stay out a lot longer.
Now, you really are able to do this individually. You're able to plan and so on. Is there any carryover between the skills that you show in doing your adventuring with your work?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because the carryover, I think, is really in the reverse. I think that what I learned in the outback, in the wilderness, in terms of solving problems on my own, being confident that I know what I'm doing, these kinds of things actually carry over into my work, and I think makes my work better and makes me better at what I do when I'm back here.
You do market research, product evaluation, things
market
like that?
consulting, yes.
And you work with groups of people or individuals or marketing people?
Yeah, we work with marketing people in major corporations, and we do research on their product or service, especially how those products and services relate to African American consumers. That's kind of what we specialize in, although we work around the world. And so what I learned in the backcountry really carries over back here.
You have a lot of pins on your jacket. Now, how did you get them, and what do they mean?
Well, they're really to weigh me down when it gets really windy.
That's right. When you are hiking, so do you wear this jacket?
I wear this. I don't bring the pins because the pins are too heavy. Yeah. But I wear it mostly because of all the patches on the back, and so people are really.
You have a book called the Red Book.
Yeah, the Red Hat book. I'm noted for always wearing a red hat, which is not really a great idea because red attracts bees and mosquitoes and insects.
Well, why don't you change it to green or yellow?
Because I like red. Because I like red. So wherever I go, I collect these pins and these patches. And a lot of times people will give me one. They'll say, "Oh, would you take this pin and wear it?"
Pins from various communities or hostels or what?
They're everything. Some of them are flags of different countries. Some of them are specific national parks or routes. Some of them are just businesses or bush pilots and local outfitters have little pins that they give out. And so I have these. I probably have maybe another 200 pins that I can't fit on here.
And on the patches on the back, what are they for?
Well, now every patch represents another place. Some of the places I go, they don't even have patches. But if they do, if it's a national park or national forest or some kind of a route that sells a patch, I'll buy it. If they don't have a patch, I'll use a flag of the country. This is actually a holdover from the Boy Scout days, because back in the Boy Scouts, we used to wear these red jackets, and we used to trade patches, and we used to sew the patches on the back. And so I kept that kind of tradition going.
What kind of message would you give to people who are viewing this show about life, adventure, planning? There is a larger message behind what you do because it's really so unusual and you're so very good at it.
Well, thank you. I think that if there is a message, the message is to get yourself a passion. Find something that you're really interested in, that you're passionate about, and go ahead and do it. And don't let anybody tell you that you can't do it. You know, I remember being young in school and growing up in the projects, and there were people, you know, sometimes even in schools that would discourage you from trying to really reach for something that you wanted. You know, they'd say, well, you know, try to get yourself a decent job in the sanitation department or something that will give you, you know, a decent salary or whatever. And, you know, I wanted to reach beyond that, you know, and so if I had a message for people, the message would be, you know, you don't have to go and sleep on the ground, and you don't have to carry a 60-pound pack, but find something that you really, really, really love to do, and just dedicate yourself to doing it and do it. And if anybody stands in your way, don't, you know, be discouraged, and don't let anybody tell you that you can't do it. I go around the schools occasionally, and I talk to students, and that's what I tell them.
As you know, I'm a Tuskegee Airman,
right.
And that's one of the messages that we try to take to the young people, that you can do anything, and you have to have a feeling about it. You have to have a pride. What's the most beautiful place that you've ever been?
Whoa. Well, and now that's going to be tough because they're all really, really beautiful. The mountains in Switzerland, perhaps the best mountain scenery, you know, I've seen. But you know, to see a glacier that's, you know, maybe 3 miles wide and maybe 100 miles deep, To see grizzly bear in the wild, to see mountain flowers on the tundra, to see the greenery in the mountains changing in the autumn to russet and red. It's just so beautiful. It really, it's hard to pinpoint one particular location. And I've been in the mountains, I've been in the desert, I've been in the jungle. You know, in its way, nature is just that beautiful.
What's your next trip?
Well, right now I'm planning, you know, I usually have 2 or 3 kind of in the works. And this year, you know, of all the places I've been, I've very rarely been any place in the States. You know, I've never been to Yellowstone National Park or anything like that. And this year I have a couple of friends coming in from Australia, and they want to do a trip in the States. And so I'm putting together a very, very nice trip in the mountains of Colorado.
Well, we look forward to hearing about that trip sometime later on African American Legends. Today on African American Legends, we've been talking with J.R. Harris, adventurer who's done adventuring all over the world, and it presents a beautiful message. Do what you feel you want to do and do it as well as you can. Thanks, J.R., for being with us.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.